Hello, Lena. Welcome to Mr. Quakers Teaches. Mr. Quakers. In this lesson, I'll be analyzing Sujata Bhatt's poem, A Different History. Now, this poem is part of the 15 poems in your GCSE or IGCSE anthology. And I've analyzed all 15 poems in a course. Now, the course contains analysis of all of the individual 15 poems, sample A-star quality essays or grade 9 essays, but there are also predicted questions as well. So the idea is that you listen to the analysis, you try out the predicted questions for each of the poems, and then you look at the sample essays to guide you on how to present your answers. So for example, how you should present your introduction, the body, how to use conjunctions in your essay, and also the conclusion as well. Now, the course or the entirety of the course, which contains all the things I've mentioned, it's only £5 a month in subscription. So that's £5 a month in subscription. So that gives you access to all the analysis of all the 15 poems, the predicted questions for each of the poems, and also sample A-star or grade 9 essays. Now, additionally, you can also buy the entirety of the course for £45 a year, or subscribe to it for £45 a year. Now, what that means is that you get to save 3 months in subscription, or £15 in subscription. Now, additionally, we also provide tuition services as well. So if you need help for the other components of the English literature, so this is the poetry component, but then if you need help for the prose, the unseen paper, or the drama, again, you can sign up. You can see the link in the description. Additionally, you can just go to www.mrquakersteaches.com and then sign up for our tuition lessons. Now, the thing is that the first lesson is a trial lesson, and so it's free. So you join the lesson. If you enjoy the lesson and you want to stick and stay, you can do that. Or if you want to look at other options as well, that's also something that you could do. Now, additionally, we also provide tuition as well for the other subjects in the GCSE stroke IGCSE. So we provide assistance in English literature, or tuition in English literature, history, geography, sociology, math, the sciences, triple sciences, and we have expert tutors, people who have taught for a long number of years. Some of them have taught these prepared people for this exam for 15 years or even more. Myself, I started teaching people or preparing people for the GCSE in 2008. So that's about 18 years ago. So these are people who can grow your confidence and help you prepare for the exams by trying out past papers, showing you how to manage your time in course of your preparation and the likes. So again, you can sign up for these for tuition as well. Now, if you also want to reach out to me directly, maybe you have other questions or things you want to reach out to me, you can send me an email, and the email address is mrq@mrquakersteaches.com. That is mrq@mrquakersteaches.com. Or you can also send an email to mrquakersteaches@gmail.com. That's mrquakersteaches@gmail.com, and then I'll reach out to you, and then I'll see how best I can help you. Let's begin the analysis. Let's begin by speaking about the poet Sujata Bhatt. So she was born on the 6th of May 1956. She's an acclaimed Indian poet known for her evocative and culturally rich works. She has carved a unique niche in the world of literature through her exploration of identity, language, and cultural intricacies. Born in India and exposed to diverse cultures through her global travels, Bhatt's life experience have profoundly influenced her poetic expressions. One of her poems I really like is the poem Liberty. It's part of, you find it on my social media handle, on my YouTube handle. So it's a very, very wonderful poem that uses olfactory imagery to create a striking sense of place. Now, in terms of the poem, this is how the poem appears. It's a 2-stanza poem, right? It has 2 stanzas, and then it's also 29 lines in total. Now, you can also look at the use of indentation. I'll speak about the structure of the poem in a later portion of my analysis. Now, in terms of a summary of the poem essentially is about the gods, the movement of the gods, how in India there's more welcoming of the gods than in Europe, where Great Pan has immigrated from. And you can also see a lot of emphasis on how books should be treated, and how nature should be cared for. Then in the second stanza of the poem, it talks about language, how language has been used as a tool to subjugate and then control people. So that essentially is the summary of the poem. Now, let me begin my analysis by reading the poem, A Different History by Sujata Bhatt. Great Pan is not dead. He simply emigrated to India. Here, the gods roam freely, disguised as snakes or monkeys. Every tree is sacred, and it's a sin to be rude to a book. It's a sin to shove a book aside with your foot. A sin to slam books down hard on a table. A sin to toss one carelessly across a room. You must learn how to turn the pages gently, without disturbing Sarasvati, without offending the tree from whose wood the paper was made. Which language has not been the oppressor's tongue? Which language truly meant to murder someone? And how does it happen that after torture, after the soul has been cropped with a long sight, swooping out from the conqueror's face, the unborn children grow to love the strange language? Now, the poem in stanza 1 opens with the claim Great Pan is not dead. Now, great reveals the speaker's tone of awe and respect for Pan. Right? Pan is the ancient Greek god of nature, who is part man and then part goat. Now, the second part of the first line, it's not dead, is a statement claiming that Pan is alive, essentially. So, Great Pan is not dead. It means that Great Pan is alive. So, we see here that there's this claim that the god Pan is still living. Now, we also see the use of anthropomorphism with the pronoun he. So that is an anthropomorphism that humanizes Pan or gives Pan human qualities. Now, the other part of the two other words that remain in the second line, simply emigrated, implies that Pan left his country to permanently settle in another. So he's moved from his country, which we're going to see, is Europe, and then he's moved to India essentially, which is in the Asian subcontinent. Now, to India provides the exact country that he emigrated to and allows the reader to infer that Pan moved not just country. So it's not that he just moved from Greece. Greece is his original country to India, but then he also moved continents as well. So he moved from Europe to Asia. Now, the question is that did the Enlightenment make religion too unattractive in Europe? So a god had to move to Asia because in Asia they believe in the supernatural a bit easier there. I think that's like the question that comes up. So we see in like the underbelly, the fact that the Enlightenment has sort of shoved religion and then belief in the supernatural to the fringes of Europe. But then in India, it is still bustling. It's still something that is quite alive. And we see that in the next line, the line that says here, the gods roam freely. So that attests to the fact that in India, unlike in Europe, the gods are still, respected. Now, here is a crazy impression that the speaker is pointing to the floor or is pointing to this place where he is. It's a reference to India. And that suggests that, like Great Pan, the speaker also is in India. Remember, Bhatt is of Indian ancestry. So there's this possibility that the speaker is saying that here where I am, this India where I am, the gods roam freely, which means that there's no hindrances to the movement of the pantheons in India. So the gods are free to go where they like, and then they can do whatever they like. So they can walk aimlessly, essentially. If you roam freely, it means you're going around aimlessly. Now, figuratively, however, it may be an allusion to how easily people there or people in India believe in the supernatural by the point that is being made by the gods roam freely. Now, the next thing we see is that the speaker begins to tell us how the gods present themselves with a detail disguised as snakes or monkeys. So that suggests that these two mentioned animals, so snakes and monkeys, are not the true nature of the gods. Instead, the gods take on the appearances, or they take on the appearance of both animals to conceal their real identity. So we can also see quite a bit of superstition and power influence as well, to reveal to the reader that the gods can take the form that they like. And the two key or primary forms that they take are snakes or monkeys. The speaker continues, every tree is sacred. Now that reveals that all the trees are venerated. So what essentially that means is that they are considered holy or pure. It also means that the trees are respected, and they are also seen as connected to the gods, and it's used for religious purposes. So every tree is sacred. It shows that the trees there are used for religious purposes. They are also venerated and considered to be holy. The speaker now begins to list multiple things that are sin or can be considered a sin against the book. And she says that, and it's a sin that carries a warning tone, right? And it's a sin. It tells the reader that it is considered an immoral act or a transgression against the gods. It's an immoral act. It's a warning. It's a sin. Now, the other part of the line, or the next line, to be rude to a book, that personifies the book and suggests that a person can speak offensively to the book. So it's the implication there is that the book is sensitive to how people speak to it. And if people speak to it in a very rough way, it is something that the book is not going to like. Now, in terms of the themes of the poem, we see the theme of religion in the opening paragraphs. The opening stanza 1. We also see the theme of history as well, and migration. Then, in the second stanza, we see theme of colonialism, imperialism, and language. So those are the themes that we see in the second stanza. So we see this talk about religion, and then later on, the talk about colonialism and imperialism. And I think the speaker is just trying to tell us that religion and imperialism go hand in hand, essentially. Now, in terms of the point of view of the poem is recounted with a blend of the third and the second person's point of view. Now, the third person is seen in the reference to great pan as he, and then the second person is seen in the referrer or referring to the reader as your. That's sort of creates the impression that like laws are being laid out. So in that instance, they are speaking directly to the reader. Now, in terms of the tone of the poem, we see the tone of pride in the opening portions when they talk about the emigration of Great Pan, and it's also quite lecturing as well when they are talking about things not to do. To the books, it's quite pensive, causes us to thinking, and then it's also quite enlightening as well. Towards it, the end of it, where we see as they talk about language and how language has been used to subjugate people over time. In fact, every language, for that matter, if the speakers are powerful. Now, in terms of the form and structure of the poem has 29 lines in total, right? The first stanza has 18 lines, while the second stanza has 11 lines. Now, I tell my students that if you're looking to achieve either an A, right, or an A star, or grade 8 or a grade 9, you have to write about the structure of a poem. So in terms of you talk about the length, the number of lines, 29 lines, 18 in the first stanza, 11 in the second stanza. So the implication here is that the speaker is a bit more focused on the point about religion than maybe language, but language is also important. Now, the third, 10th, 12, and 14 lines of the first stanza and the entirety of the second stanza is indented. So if you look at the third line, you can see that after migrated, there's an indentation before to India is said. In the 10th line as well, after book aside, there's indentation before we see with your foot. Then we also see that as well in line 12. So slam books down, and then there's indentation before you see hard on a table. And then we also see that as well in line 13. A sin to toss one carelessly. And then there's indentation before we see across a room. But then the entirety of the second stanza is indented. And I think the speaker does that to create short pauses. All right. Now, however, the indentation of the entirety of the second stanza shows that She wants it to be at the forefront of the reader's mind, right? Because in this instance, she's questioning language and how language is used by new generation and then older generations, in the subjugation of people. Now, the poet also employs enjambment, singing the flow of words from one line to the next without pause, and then which powerfully communicates the fluidity of her thoughts. She wants to speak to us about what's happening, and so she uses indentation to flow, so that there's this sense that, especially in the first stanza, where she talks about the immigration, how free it is. So the gods cannot be constrained. And then language too, we see how language also flows from one generation to the next again, I think with the use of enjambment. So there you have it. Sujata Bhatt's A Different History has been made simple. Like I mentioned in the opening of the introduction and of the analysis, this analysis is part of a course that contains the analysis of all the 15 poems in your GCSE or IGCSE anthology. The course also contains predicted questions for each of the poems, and it also contains sample A* or grade 9 essays as well that you can mimic. So what to do, for example, in your introduction, what to do in the body of your writing, what to do in the conclusion, how to use conjunctions, the rest. You can see them there in the sample A* or grade 9 essays. Now, additionally, if you need help with the other components of the English literature, we provide tuition services as well, both group and then one-on-one. Now, the thing is that the first lesson is a free lesson. All right, it's a free lesson. And like I mentioned, for the analysis, you can get the analysis of all the poems for only £5 a month in subscription. That's £5 a month. But you can get the entirety of it for a year for £45. That means you get to save £15 a year for a year. It means you get to save 3 months in subscription. Now, for the tuition services, the first lesson is a trial lesson. So you can join the lesson if you like it. That's wonderful. You can stick and stay. Now, the usefulness of it is that we teach you how to write. Not only do we help with the English literature component, but then for English, history, geography, sociology, the math, sciences, we have a lot of teachers or very experienced teachers that can help grow your confidence and teach you what to do, how to use time, how to manage your time as you prepare for the GCSE or IGCSE if you're writing it internationally. Now, additionally, if you want to reach me directly, you can send an email to me, and the email address is mrq@mrquickesteaches.com. That's mrq@mrquickesteaches.com, or you can also send it to mrquickesteaches@gmail.com. mrquickesteaches@gmail.com. So remember, you can subscribe to get the entirety of this analysis for only £5 a month or £45 a year, or you can also sign up for tuition services as well for all the components and also for the other subjects. Or if you have any questions, you can also leave it in the comments field as well. I'll reach out to you and explain a bit more to you. Until the next lesson, thank you for joining the analysis. Bye-bye.